It's really something how quickly a digital space can just ignite. If you look at Bangladesh's Facebook right now,
Yeah.
it's buzzing, almost feels like a real battleground of ideas.
Yeah, it's intense.
And the trigger seems to be all these personal stories popping up
Yeah.
from journalists, activists, people who were right there during the Long July Uprising.
Which was clearly a hugely turbulent period.
Absolutely. So today we're diving into this really interesting opinion piece. It's from February 2025 by Rizal Karimroni. He's the editor of Joban magazine.
Right. And he's looking squarely at these Facebook discussions, trying to figure out what they actually tell us about the uprising itself and its meaning.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to really get into that debate, the one swirling around the legacy of the Long July Uprising. What are the different takes? What's really being argued over as people look back? And maybe most importantly, what was the actual, the core spirit of it all?
Exactly. And Roni's article gives us a really useful framework for thinking about all that.
He starts with this analogy, something about blind men and an elephant. Okay, let's unpack that a bit. What's he getting at there?
Well, it's that classic fable. He uses it to make a point about these individual accounts on Facebook. They're valuable, sure, they're firsthand experiences, but each one it's just one part of the elephant, a fragment.
Ah, okay. So everyone's describing the leg or the trunk or the tail.
Precisely. They can only describe what they personally touched or
Yeah.
experienced. So you get lots of different descriptions, yeah, but they're all incomplete on their own. No single one gives you the whole picture.
Right, right. You get these snapshots, but putting the whole creature together is tough, which makes you think in this flood of personal stories, what about historians? Does the article say anything about their role?
It does, yeah. Roni argues that, look, these personal stories, these oral histories, they're crucial. They give you the lived reality, the feeling of it. But building a full, accurate historical narrative, that takes the systematic work of professional historians.
Okay. They have the methods to, what, piece together all those fragments.
Exactly. To analyze them, cross-reference, look for wider evidence,
Yeah.
develop more, nuanced and evidence-based understanding than any single account can offer.
But it feels like the reaction on Facebook isn't just about objective historical fact finding. There's more going on, a layer of interpretation, maybe even suspicion.
Oh, absolutely. According to Roni, a lot of people in Bangladesh aren't just reading these posts as simple memoirs. There's a pretty strong feeling, apparently, that some individuals are using these posts to sort of retroactively plant a flag.
Plant a flag, meaning.
Meaning they're trying to claim they were the ones pulling the strings, or that they played some central organizing role in the uprising, trying to claim credit, basically.
Okay. Which leads us right to what sounds like Roni's main point, the thing he keeps coming back to. What's his core argument?
He's really, really clear on this. He repeats it. Anyone, and he makes a point of excluding the martyrs from this, but anyone else trying to claim personal credit for the Long July Uprising, well, they're fundamentally misunderstanding it. They're acting against its very spirit.
Against the spirit. Okay, so what was that spirit, in his view? What are the key things we need to grasp about the uprising's essence?
He lays out a few key characteristics. First, it's plurality. The fact that, there wasn't one single leader or group in control. It wasn't centrally planned.
So messy, maybe,
Yeah,
organic.
Definitely organic. Second, he points to all the moments of uncertainty,
Right.
real challenges.
Yeah.
And it was the collective drive, the people stepping up together that pushed it through those moments.
Yeah.
He also highlights the unity, just how many different kinds of people came together, students, yeah, but also ordinary citizens, religious figures, women.
Regardless of their politics.
Regardless of politics, background, ideology, it was this broad coalition. And crucially, the movement kept going. It had its own momentum, even when there were attempts to, call it off or pause it.
That unity aspect sounds incredibly important, and it seems like Roni believes holding on to that understanding that it was plural, that it was collective, is critical. What's the danger if we forget that?
He sees a huge danger there. Roni argues that if you lose sight of that pluralism, you fundamentally change what the movement was. It stops being about that shared collective energy and risks becoming something. Well, he uses the word reactionary.
Reactionary.
Yeah. He even draws a comparison, maybe a provocative one, to Mujibism, which, for context, generally refers to the political ideology built around Sheikh Mujibur Rahman.
Okay.
And Roni then brings in Hegel, the philosopher, calling this kind of shift, this kind of forgetting, a crime against the spirit, a betrayal of what the uprising truly represented.
Wow. A crime against the spirit. That's heavy. So preserving that collective idea is everything for him. It wasn't about individual wins.
Not at all. He really hammers this home. The uprising transcended individual goals or ambitions. It was about a shared purpose, not who gets the glory at the end. In fact, he sees the uprising itself as this huge turning point, a seismic shift, he calls it. The moment a new generation, Gen Z, really asserted its political authority.
Interesting. And where does the fall of the dictator, Hasina, fit into this picture, according to the article?
He frames that more as a consequence,
Okay.
an outcome of the broader movement rather than the movement's sole objective.
So it wasn't just about getting rid of her.
Not primarily, no.
Hmm.
He stresses there wasn't some calculated power agenda behind it all. It was more like Gen Z drawing a line in the sand saying, we reject this old way of doing politics. A clear verdict.
Okay. So if the goal wasn't just regime change, what does Roney think is the right way forward? How do you actually honor this uprising and its spirit?
His answer is pretty direct. The only way to truly honor it is to build a state that's actually rooted in civil rights for everyone. Without that foundation, he warns, all this debate about who did what, who deserves credit, it just fuels more division, more chaos, potentially.
He also brings in some philosophy, doesn't he? Something about being an event. How does that fit in? Sounds a bit abstract.
Yeah, it is a bit philosophical, but it's key to his argument. He uses this idea, drawing from thinkers like Badiou perhaps, to frame the uprising, especially maybe the events around July 24th, as a potential pure event.
A pure event. Okay, what does that mean in like plain English?
It means something happens that sort of breaks free from its initial causes or the intentions of the people involved. It takes on a life, a meaning of its own, and it can become truly historically significant if that independent spirit, that autonomy is protected. If it's not, reduced back down to just being about specific people or easily explained away, if it's not personified.
Ah, okay. So don't try to pin it on one person or one simple explanation because that diminishes its unique power.
Exactly. Which ties back to his skepticism about people trying to write themselves into the main role after the fact. He touches on, human nature.
The desire for credit, ego.
Yeah, the drive for control, the ego, that desire to be seen as historically important, to have a legacy. He suggests this can push people to, well, maybe overstate their case, to present themselves as central figures, even if their actual role wasn't quite so pivotal. You see that tendency sometimes, right? People wanting to be the hero of the story.
Definitely. So for Roney, the real story, the true essence, isn't found by looking for individual heroes anyway.
Not at all. He insists the defining feature, the real essence of historical moments like this, lies in that collective spirit, the energy that brings people together, not the specific job titles or actions of individuals. And he warns again, focusing on individual egos, on who gets the credit, that risks watering down the real meaning. It risks missing the point entirely.
Okay, so the big takeaway here, from Roney's perspective at least, is crystal clear. Protect the collective spirit. Because if we fail to understand that, fail to honor it, we could actually lose the very thing that made the Long July Uprising so important in the first place.
That's precisely his warning. That failure to grasp and safeguard that collective essence means risking the loss of its core significance. It just fades into another squabble over credit.
Well, this deep dive into Roney's article really throws a spotlight on that tension, doesn't it? Between individual stories and the larger sweep of a collective movement. It really makes you think, how do societies balance recognizing individual acts of courage or leadership with understanding that some events are just bigger than any one person?
Yeah, and can a historical event ever truly be separated from the mix of intentions, maybe even the agendas, of the people who were part of it?
These are tough questions.
They really are.
Yeah.
Especially now, with social media letting everyone broadcast their own version of events instantly, it forces you to think critically about how collective action works and how those competing stories take shape afterwards.
Definitely food for thought. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on how these different narratives about the Long July Uprising continue to develop. And maybe down the road, we can dig into similar issues in other movements or look more closely at how technology is shaping, our collective memory itself.